Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and today I'm going to be reviewing an album that is very close to my heart, Ocean Eyes by Owl City. Now you may be wondering, Landon, why on earth are you just now reviewing this album that came out over 10 years ago at this point, and in a time of the year that's been so stacked with releases? Shouldn't you be reviewing something else? And those are pretty much the same questions I've been asking myself over the last few days, but the primary reason I'm just now covering Ocean Eyes is because this right here is my 300th review. Of course, not including rapid fire reviews, reactions, or discussion videos. This is the 300th time I've sat down in front of my camera to talk about an album, EP, or single. I've also been at this for over 5 years at this point, so the fact that I haven't talked about this album that is honestly so fundamental to my current music taste is kind of crazy. I had actually originally planned to review this album for its 10th anniversary last July, but I just kind of got caught up with a lot of different stuff. I had just moved to Idaho, things were a bit hectic, so I thought, why the heck not cover the album that's probably the single most influential project on my current music taste for my 300th review? The only logical answer to that question is that there are quite a few albums that have come out as of late that I'm planning on reviewing, and covering this instead kind of pushes that back, but I promise I will get to them soon. But on to the subject at hand. I myself, like I'm sure 99% of you watching this, found Owl City in late 2009 thanks to his Billboard #1 single, Fireflies. My sister had actually introduced me to the song on account of the fact that it had some pretty strange lyrics. I found Fireflies to be quite amusing in that regard, even humorous with its completely nonsensical lyrics. I get 1,000 hugs from 10,000 lightning bugs. It's no wonder the song recently resurfaced as a meme. From that point forward, though, I started to gain a kind of unironic appreciation of the song, mostly for its off-kilter electronic elements and its massive chorus driven by its powerful electric guitars. I started to gain even more interest in Owl City when I found out that Adam Young was a passionate Christian, with Adam Young even going as far as to write a song that could be construed as a worship song, Meteor Shower, for this album. And as a middle school kid whose CD collection was largely comprised of albums from the Newsboys, Toby Mac, Skillet, and Hawk Nelson, I gladly added this one to my collection. I remember the day I bought this album really not being all that great. I'm pretty sure I was sick, and I just remember laying down on one of the couches in the basement of the church I grew up in, popping this album in a CD player and listening to it for the first time, then listening to it again and again. Ocean Eyes instantly took me to another world. I pretty much completely forgot about how crappy I felt for the majority of the day. It was definitely one of the more eye-opening musical experiences of my life. I had never heard anything quite like this album before that point, and I'm sure a lot of other people, particularly future electronic music producers, must have been similarly impacted by the album, as Ocean Eyes, among other Adam Young projects, has had a clear influence on artists like Porter Robinson, Said the Sky, Essinger, World, Richard Caddick, Nano-B through his Linus from the Stars alias. Heck, this album might have even played a massive role in the come-up of melodic dubstep in the 2010s, considering there's some very proto-melodic dubstep sounding stuff on this album, and it came out a full 3 years before Seven Lions released the game-changing Days to Come. However, in spite of all of this, critics throughout the years, both past and present, have not been so kind to this album, with it generally getting a lot of comparison to the acclaimed soul studio album from the Postal Service, Give Up, which is to some degree understandable. Of course, Give Up is a great album, and the two do share a few similarities. However, I feel like way too many critics just took one listen to Ocean Eyes, heard the bleeps and bloops and LOL XD random lyrics, and just completely dismissed it as a Postal Service ripoff, including Mr. Anthony Fantano, a critic I admire a ton and actually inspired me to start doing reviews on this channel. I would personally fight that argument though, not only because I think dismissing an album completely for using a formula that another artist established is completely stupid, but because I honestly don't think the two albums are sonically all that similar. Listening through Give Up again and again, really the only song that I think sounds that much like the stuff on Ocean Eyes is Such Great Heights. I feel like the recording, engineering, and mixing process on Give Up was also very different than Ocean Eyes. Give Up is generally more rustic, more analog focused, whereas Ocean Eyes is a bit more digital and cleanly produced. The sonic blending on Give Up to me is more like indie rock meets 90s house and garage, whereas Ocean Eyes is more like straight pop meets electro house. Ocean Eyes is structured and formulaic, whereas Give Up is a little bit more freeform and abstract. I also feel like the lyrics on Give Up are designed more to tell real-life stories in an abstract sense, whereas on Ocean Eyes the lyrics are pretty much completely nonsensical. Not to mention that Ben Gibbard and Adam Young vocally really sound nothing alike. Of course, I'm not saying that Give Up didn't play a big role in the influence, the sound of Ocean Eyes. Heck, Adam Young himself admitted that. But saying that Owl City is to the Postal Service what Greta Van Fleet is to Led Zeppelin is a bit much. In my book, Ocean Eyes is both Owl City's greatest artist album and, in general, one of the holy grails of the synth-pop genre, especially in the last decade or so. The album certainly isn't the most deep or artistic project, and that's another reason I think it's very different than Give Up. It's extremely nonsensical, and I don't think it tries to be much more than that. Have to consider the fact that Adam Young was younger than I currently am when he started working on this album, which is crazy to think about. Honestly, I would never really expect someone at his age to write like the most deep and meaningful album anyway. Maybe that's why Billie Eilish's album surprised me so much, but yeah, Ocean Eyes is more of like a fun, mood-lifting kind of album. I mean, I sure as hell am not going to listen to Give Up if I want to put on an album that's going to make me feel good. Admittedly, I absolutely adore this album from front to back in really every single aspect, from its slick and clean production, to its power-packed hooks, to its incredible melodies, to its clever wordplay. On that last front, you pretty much know what you're getting into with this album when Cave In starts with "Please take a long hard look through your textbooks, 'cause I'm history," and continuing forward with glorious pun after glorious pun, just the right amount of corniness so it's not too much. Some of my favorite lines in this song being, "Riding a dirt bike down a turnpike always takes its toll on me. If the bombs go off, the sun will still be shining, because I've heard it said that every mushroom cloud has a silver lining." And my personal favorite, "Swallow a drop of gravel and blacktop, 'cause the road tastes like wintergreen." From that point, the album continues with an extremely cutesy, acoustic-driven cut, "The Bird and the Worm." And this song is just absolutely wild, with, of course, Adam comparing himself to a worm, and comparing his love interest to a bird, even saying, if my segments get separated, I'll scream and you'll be there. He even talks about getting hooked on a fishing line and getting thrown into the water only to throw a party with his undersea friends. Also, one of my favorite lines Adam Young has ever uttered happens on this song. "We'll take a long walk through the cornfield and I'll kiss you between the ears." Following that comes the 2009 rework of Hello Seattle, which was originally released on Owl City's Of June EP. This song was always a really cool one for me, as growing up, Seattle was kind of my home away from home, with part of my family being, out in Washington, and of course I did eventually move there too. Lyrically, the song is really cool as well, with Young describing the city of Seattle from numerous different perspectives, an albatross, a manta ray, the freaking moon. But then the thing that I really love about this song over everything else is the hook. It's just so huge and powerful. Honestly, one of my favorite choruses of all time. Umbrella Beach is another cool one, about a man who lives in a boxcar at the bottom of the sea. But on another level, I think it's just a bright song about having a happy place that you can get away to, away from all the stresses and pains of life. The Saltwater Room is another rework, this time being pulled from the debut Owl City album, Maybe I'm Dreaming. This time a little bit more string focused than electronic. There's some great acoustic plucks on this cut. More than anything, I think it's a great duet with Breanne Duran. It's amazing how he managed to find someone he has so much chemistry with as a vocalist. In fact, when my sister originally told me about this song, she referred to her as the female Owl City. The song has kind of a mysterious tone to it. A lot of the verses are very abstract, but I think what the song generally ties into is just being in a relationship and feeling in those moments like nothing else. Yeah, after that we get Dental Care, which, of course, judging by the title, is a song about literally going to the dentist. How and why exactly Universal Republic approved this one is beyond me, but I love it. Some more great puns on this cut, like I'd rather pick flowers instead of fights. When hygienists leave on long vacations, that's when dentists scream and lose their patience. Golf and alcohol don't mix, and that's why I don't drink and drive. Because good grief, I'd knock out my teeth and have to kiss my smile goodbye. Meteor Shower, like I mentioned before, is one of the ones that really got me hooked on Owl City to begin with. It's a really beautiful cut, almost like an interlude, mostly instrumental, spending a lot of time building atmosphere, and then just slapping listeners with that massive chorus. I am not my own, for I have been made new. Please don't let me go, I desperately need you. Really takes me back to when Young made Christian music that wasn't so in your face. On the Wing is one of those more abstract cuts, and another one that was pulled from the debut Owl City album. A very dreamy cut with Young remembering a time that he had fallen in love with someone for a weekend. Also think the chorus on this song is just mwah. I'm so glad they brought it over from Maybe I'm Dreaming. Fireflies, I almost think there's very little sense in me even talking about it. All of you have listened to it and have made your opinion on it by this point, but I do like how it combines that abstract lyricism with the off-kilter electronic elements and the big, rock-influenced chorus. The song's got an excellent sense of progression, kind of feeling like it's not meant to be taken seriously at the beginning, and progressing into like bigger and louder and more emotional. The Tip of the Iceberg has always been one of my favorite deep cuts from Owl City, and I think a big part of that is because he sings at a much lower register than normal for the majority of the song, and then, in that big bridge just comes out, bring it up an octave, and it just sounds so powerful. The lyrics, once again, are a bit more abstract. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure what this song is about, but some of the imagery is particularly interesting to me. I could skate from Maine to Nebraska, then on to Alaska and back, and that line was always particularly cool for me anyway, because growing up in Maine, I'd never really heard my home state mentioned all that much in music. Paint runs from your mouth like a waterfall and your lungs crystallize. It's all like very cool imagery throughout the entire song. Vanilla Twilight is a much slower and ballad-like piano-driven cut, and it's a very beautiful moment on the album. It seems to be about Young missing a loved one who's passed on, although I feel like I've been able to connect to this song quite a bit as, someone who's been in a couple long-distance relationships. Another one of my favorite lines on the album is found on this song as well. The silence isn't so bad till I look at my hands and feel sad, because the spaces between my fingers are right where yours fit perfectly. Oh, the feels. And Tidal Wave leaves this album on a nice positive note. It's a song about overcoming and being brave. Also featuring Matthew Teason of Reliant K, with him and Young kind of going back and forth throughout the verses, also featuring some more of those subtle Christian elements with lines like, "I was blind, but now I can see because I found a new hope from above." All in all, I think this album is a great example that you can put together an excellent album without having a narrative or concept tying it all together. It's a great collection of synth pop tunes, and while I do think for the most part they do have a sound to them, I think Adam Young keeps the album varied enough to, stay interesting. There's really nothing negative I have to say about this album. I couldn't even think of anything if I tried. Like I said before, Ocean Eyes is undoubtedly the single most impactful LP when it comes to my music taste, and while I'm a bit hesitant to give it the favorite album of all time title, it's certainly one of my favorites, like top 3. If you didn't love this album already, I hope this review encourages you to revisit it, maybe with new eyes, and if you already have known and loved this album for years like myself, I hope I did it justice. For Ocean Eyes, of course, with how highly I think of this album, I am feeling a 10 out of 10. As always, if you guys haven't listened to this album yet, which would blow my mind if you haven't and you're watching this review, you can find the Spotify link down in the description below, and if you have any thoughts on it, make sure to leave them down in the comments section. If you're new to the channel and you want to see more content like this, make sure to consider hitting the subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the review, make sure to leave me a like. Anyway, I'm Landon Remixes. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.